Hello, hello. I think we are live. Let me go ahead and check my channel. Maybe not yet. Yes, we are. Hello. Good stuff. Alright, well, thought I'd start by checking out this video by Debug Your Brain. 7 vegan activism ideas for every personality type. Let's have a look.
Outreach isn't the only valid form of activism, so if you shied away from activism in the past because that doesn't suit you, here's literally every other way you can get active for the animals. So the easiest way is through some sort of public visual messaging. Sidewalk chalking is a well-known strategy, but there's plenty of other options out there. You can write messages on restaurant receipts, you can tell baristas that your name is something vegan related, you can pick vegan names for bowling or arcade games or for your characters in online video games. If you go to the beach, you can write giant messages in the sand, you can post flyers on telephone poles, and you can post vegan stickers on your phone, laptop, water bottle, and on the packages of animal body parts in grocery stores. Check out Etsy as they have a bunch of shops that sell just these sorts of stickers. But some of the most powerful in the genre are the ones that are the most permanent. Writing on currency is effectively forever, as most people aren't in the habit of throwing away money, and you can almost guarantee it'll be circulated amongst a wide variety of people. Graffiti is another level up, and in my experience is rarely if ever washed off as long as it's not in the middle of downtown. Bumper stickers are a perennial classic, but just make sure you only have a few with fairly simple messages.
You're doing like 7 in the first minute. I feel like there's been so many already.
So you don't overwhelm the reader. Now, 2 of my favorites are wearing clothes with vegan messages and writing in the stalls of bathrooms. One benefit of wearing clothes with a vegan message is that they present zero opportunity cost after the initial purchase. For instance, if you go to the gym, just make all your gym shirts vegan shirts, and now 3 to 4 times a week, you're doing a bit of active.
Only if you're tonk though. If you know you're skinny, don't be wearing the vegan vest in the gym. That's my advice.
Without even having to
This guy needs to wear it. I mean, come on.
think about it. Plus, you're signaling to other vegans around you that they're not alone. I've personally had people come up and fist bump me for my shirt, and it's definitely a mental health boost for the day. For vegan shirts, there's lots of options. Anticarnist.com has some pretty metal designs, while many activists like David Rams and Earthling Ed each have their own clothing lines. I also like TeePublic as they've got a bunch of great options.
Thinking about doing vegan 2.0 caps. Just having a look earlier at sort of Printify and platforms like that. It's quite cool because I come up on Google if you Google that phrase. And I feel like it's a sort of memorable phrase and would make you curious to Google it if you saw someone wearing that. So I think that could be a quite cool way to grow the channel. And I could do it for charity. You know, I'd do probably FarmKind as the recipient of any would-be profit. They're pretty cheap to do.
And if their website is to be believed, they at least seem concerned with ethical production and sustainability. Also, shout out to Natasha Poet for one of my favorite designs. Now, I know bathroom stall graffiti seems silly, but hear me out. Bathroom graffiti is almost never cleaned up, it gets to a wide audience, it likely exposes many of the same people repeatedly. This is important because of something called the mere exposure effect. People are going to be looking at it for more than a few seconds, and they're probably already going to be on their phones, which is good for messages like Watch Dominion or Watch Dairy is Scary. Plus, all you have to do is carry a marker or a pen around with you and go to the bathroom, which I hope you're doing anyway. Now, anecdotally, I found college students to be the most receptive to veganism, so it might be smart to target college bars or buildings on college campuses specifically. Personally, I'd aim for messages that are short and actionable, like watchdominion.com or Watch Dairy is Scary on YouTube, messages that communicate something most people don't know, like the majority of pigs you eat are put into gas chambers, and messages that are non-threatening but normalize veganism, like be kind, go vegan.
Yeah, I think just the statements of fact that most people don't know about is a really good idea. Like the majority of pigs going in gas chambers. We did a billboard that said dairy cows cry when we take their babies away for milk. That was quite an interesting one because we had to actually put it through an ethics board because we were running a study on it. And the ethics board contested that cows cry. And I had to go and find some evidence to provide for them that cows can in fact cry, which fortunately someone appeared to have been doing their PhD, I would guess, on that very topic, and had recently, from some university in Australia, published a load of papers which were about, you know, the audible distress signals from new mother dairy cows. So I was actually able to go and find some scientific sources and you know, back up that cows cry. But other than that, I was like, I'm literally just going to put YouTube videos. Here's a video of the thing happening, right? It was kind of amazing that they contested it, but they approved it in the end.
Discourage messages like my food doesn't scream or vegan because I give a shit, as these tend to center you over the victims and will likely read more sanctimonious to non-vegans, the people we're actually trying to convince.
That's interesting. Yeah. Hadn't thought of that, but that's a good point.
And look, I'm not saying wearing a t-shirt is going to save the world, but given the time commitment is almost zero, I really don't see much reason to not do it. The second family of activism, which I think is often overlooked, is vegan support and community building. There's a bunch of Facebook...
I see. This is 2 of 7, and now it looks like the first one was a long one, which is often what you would do in these kind of lists. Supporting me a bit. So the first one was sort of like signalling, stickers, clothes, that kind of thing. Supporting community building. Hey, like on live streams.
Facebook groups aimed at helping new vegans with commonly asked questions, practical hurdles, social issues, etc. And more than a few times I've seen members saying things like, lettuce has plenty of B12. Spoiler alert, it has no B12. And so the perspective of knowledgeable vegans would definitely bring a lot of value. If new vegans get off on the wrong foot or are assaulted with misinformation, they're that much more likely to become ex-vegans, which has really serious consequences for the movement. There's also the Ask Vegans group on Reddit, as well as the main vegan subreddit, which often has newbie questions and posts looking for advice and emotional support. Then there's 5 Minutes 5 Vegans, which is a website that finds and displays the most recent tweets that mention the word vegan and offers you pre-written responses.
Damn, that's quite a cool one. I'm not on Twitter anymore, though. That's a nice idea, though. 5 Minutes 5 Vegans. Give you some tweets to respond to.
Which include the most common debunks, as well as useful links to vegan resources. Considering many of these people are already expressing
If you are on Twitter, that seems well worth doing. Give that a search, 5 Minutes 5 Vegans.
an interest in veganism, they represent a very targeted segment of the population that you can get relevant information to in, as the name suggests, just 5 minutes. And note, you can also write your own custom responses. And if you're wanting something more local, you can start your own local vegan Facebook group or schedule a vegan meetup on the website meetup.com. While online social networking is powerful, I still think real-world community building reigns supreme. Something I'll be discussing in a future video related to the book Change. The third family of activism is harnessing your talents. If you have a particular skill or talent, I can almost guarantee there's a way to parlay that into a win for animal rights and veganism. Do you have software engineering skills? Well, get on veganhacktivist.org and start coding for vegan websites. Good at graphic design? Help out a vegan organization with their pamphlets or t-shirts. Do you have construction skills? Build structures at a local animal sanctuary. Do you speak multiple languages? Get on veganlinguist.org and translate vegan content. Do you write poetry or create music? Make it vegan and take it to open mics or perform at local festivals or veg fests. Most people have some sort of talent, and most of those talents can be used in service of animal rights. So get creative and discover the unique ability that you bring to the table. All right, for the fourth family,
What I like about stuff like that, the reality is almost certainly going to be better than one's perception of it when you do that kind of thing. Because I just have the sense that the naysayers are going to be much louder than people for whom you have planted a seed or provoked a further thought. I mean, lots of the people who have influenced me towards vegan things, I have never had the opportunity to let them know that, or probably I don't even consciously know most of the people who have influenced me towards veganism. So that's definitely worth thinking about if you are doing anything like open mics or like any kind of putting yourself out there in a context which is not, you know, a vegan social club, which is important to do, right? We need to be able to reach non-vegans ultimately. It wouldn't surprise me if the negative reactions are a lot louder than the positive reactions. It's worth bearing in mind.
Let's revisit outreach conversations. Obviously, you can do one-on-one live outreach, which is a big focus of this channel, but there's a bunch of other options. You can do group outreach with organizations like We the Free or Anonymous for the Voiceless. These are good if you're anxious about going solo or talking to people, since you can just hold a TV screen the whole time while other people have conversations. This is good for beginners since it lets you dip your toe in without the pressure of potentially getting into a heated debate, and also helps you build real-world community with activists in your area. But maybe it's the real-world aspect that you object to. If so, you can always have conversations.
The community building thing is really underrated, how much you can contribute in your local area, particularly if you are in an area where there aren't that many other vegans around. In that case, every additional vegan that is added is even more of a difference, right? If you're like the second vegan in some village in Texas, now there's twice as many vegans, right? It's increased 100%. Whereas if you're like the 10,001th vegan in, you know, some district of LA or something, it's not going to be quite as much the marginal impact. Not to say that it's not important to do that wherever you are, but yeah, if you do happen to be in an area where there isn't much of a vegan community, your additional presence will be even more felt.
On social platforms like Omegle, TikTok Live, and Discord. And Discord specifically has a bunch of servers that regularly host debates with non-vegans, which I'll link in the description. Now, of course, you can also just argue in the comment section of vegan posts, but there's a more powerful version of that, and it's targeting viral posts with vegan comments, specifically on Instagram and Twitter. Basically, you find some viral post that's even tangentially related to veganism, and then make it about veganism in the comments. This gives it the potential to get massive reach, especially if you get together with some vegan friends and have them all like your reply and leave their own comments. As always, I'd recommend centering the victim and highlighting practices that the reader either doesn't know about or that will grab their attention. Again, I'd avoid calling people animal abusers and instead say things like, if you think this sounds bad, why continue to fund this abuse? Or, why is it okay to treat them in a way that you yourself would detest being treated? And if you know you can't resist personal insults or just generally sounding condescending, consider saving pre-written responses to a notes app on your phone.
That's a nice idea. If you can't resist sounding condescending, I'd do it on LinkedIn.
That way you can simply copy and paste without being tempted by your emotions in the moment. I personally like the app Trello's organization for this, but there's like a billion notes apps. Now maybe this all sounds a bit boring and you really want to get your hands dirty and take direct action, attend videos.
Do I really want to be less spicy on LinkedIn though? Okay, direct action. I mean, this is where the gnarly stuff is.
Or get involved in pressure campaigns. For things of that nature, you can check out Direct Action Everywhere, Animal Rebellion, and Animal Liberation Front, just to name a few. It was DXE member Raven Deerbrook who recently exposed pig gas chambers in the United States, while Animal Rebellion makes enough noise in the UK that activist Nathan McGovern was interviewed by Piers Morgan. If you can call what Piers Morgan does interviewing. And if you want to know what ALF does,
I know that guy. He's a cool dude.
They offer a 130-page ebook chronicling 40 years of work. You can also get together with a bunch of fellow activists and start your own pressure campaigns. The activist Not Today Tay started protesting Starbucks with a local animal rights group, and this ultimately caught the attention of PETA and actor James Cromwell, who ended up supergluing themselves to Starbucks counters and making headlines nationwide. Also, one of my subscribers recently started a Discord server to carry out virtual pressure campaigns by flooding targets with calls, emails, and social media comments.
Nice. I'll have to go and check that one out. Vegan collectivism on Discord. Anyone know? Oh, there it is.
So go ahead and check out that link in the description. And if you want a solid video on pressure campaigns, you can check out this interview from Vegan FTA featuring the Cranky Vegan. And our sixth family is contacting local businesses and government representatives. Is there a restaurant in your area that doesn't offer vegan options? Call or email them and ask why not. Maybe even ask why all their options aren't vegan options. Maybe there's a local store in your area that sells wool or leather or fur. Maybe they don't realize just how cruel the process of procuring those materials is. You can even write a single email template and blast it to a bunch of local businesses, just changing the subject and business name. In an hour or two, you could reach 10, 20, 50 establishments. And if you want to find all your state and local representatives, check out commoncause.org and enter your street address. Then filter for federal, state, and local to find names and contact info. Contact them about animal cruelty, meat subsidies, ag-gag laws, environmental impacts, increased pandemic risks, or more granular local issues that may be directly relevant to your community. Or donate to groups like Agricultural Fairness Alliance that push plant-based policy changes at the governmental level. Or donate to groups like Agricultural.
Nice, that's a good tip as well. Agricultural Fairness Alliance. Have not heard of that. Let's check that out afterwards.
Fairness Alliance that push plant-based policy changes at the governmental level. Or even go right to Washington like activist Connie Spence, aka Vegan Batgirl, and try to lobby against the ludicrous subsidies for animal agriculture. And finally, you can give money to organizations, causes, sanctuaries, and online activists.
Animal charity evaluators, based.
But that's a video for another day. And if none of that really suits you, you could just start your own nonprofit like Dr. Faraz Harsini's Allied Scholars for Animal Protection, which seeks to provide a strong, effective, sustained, and united effort to end animal oppression on campuses across the country. And stay tuned because I plan to have him on my channel sometime soon for an interview. Now, of course, I couldn't actually list every type of activism, so if you want to go deeper, check out veganactivism.org, which suggests tons of ideas, organizations, and resources, animalrightsmap.org, which lists every animal rights organization in your area, and the Vegan Activism activism subreddit. And go ahead and fill up this video's comment section with any other ideas, suggestions, and real-world experience, and they might make it into part 2. Also, I'm working on a big spreadsheet of every type of activism, which you can filter based on your vibe and personal preferences, and I'll be posting that on my public Patreon page. Now, I can hear some people in my comments saying, that one type of activism you mentioned is useless, or obnoxious, or too extreme, or not extreme enough. This video really isn't meant to establish a ranking of vegan-related activism. It's meant to catalog the breadth of options out there so you can 1, get active if you aren't already, and 2, find the sort of activism that works best for you.
I was going to say, this is very exhaustive. There isn't any kind of, and I mean, fair enough, right? That's the purpose of this video. But yeah, there isn't any kind of prioritization going on. And some of these things, I guess the point is to spread as much possibility as possible. This is for every personality type, right? So this is kind of all the different, it's pretty much everything that you could possibly do as far as I can tell, right? I can't think of many things that aren't on here.
Given your specific talents, personality, geographic location, whatever. No one's saying wearing a t-shirt is going to be more impactful than going undercover in a slaughterhouse. But with few exceptions, I think activism is a lot like exercise. The best kind is whatever you're actually motivated to do consistently. So I'll end with a quote from the Instagram activist Veg Out With Me. No social justice movement can succeed without activists. The animals don't just need more vegans, they desperately need more activists. The less vegans—
True. I was thinking about this. I mean, vegan is sort of just like taking yourself out of everything that's going on in the livestock industries. It's just like not taking part at all, right? But it's not appropriate to be like a pacifist in this situation. I really do think that given some of the impactful activism you can do with such little time and effort and money, I'm increasingly inclined to say it's an obligation.
we have educating non-vegans about the hidden atrocities they fund and defending the animals, the longer the victims will continue to suffer and the people funding their abuse will continue to feel comfortable doing so. And if you want to—
When I was spoke to ask yourself about whether this could be an obligation, he has the view that there basically needs to be a very, very high ratio of effort to ethical outcome in order for a positive action to be obligatory. And I think this pretty much is the case, right? I think the example he gave is like pouring a glass of water could prevent 1,000 years of suffering or something like that. It's like not far off with some of these impactful activism things that you can do in Vegan 2.0. I'm increasingly inclined to say that it does feel like an obligation.
see me getting out there and doing real life activism, I recommend this video right here. And if you want to help me make this my full-time career, check out the Patreon in the description. And shout out to Ryan O'Neill, Tom Eisenbeiss, NetBase News, Monstar, David Yastrzemski, and Maxwell Edison.
Nice. Put the link to that video in the chat here. Go give Debug Your Brain a like and a subscribe and everything else. Nice video. Let's take a look at this platform that he spoke about, Agriculture Fairness Alliance. Vegan Voter Hub. Let's have a look about our mission. Agriculture Fairness Alliance, a 501c4 non-profit whose mission is to strategically employ lobbyists to accelerate policy changes that make sustainable plant-based food accessible to everyone at a price they can afford, empower communities to develop local plant-based agriculture systems, and give farmers tools and strategy to transition from animal ag to plant-based farming. Well, that sounds pretty based. AFA supports the following principles. Number 1, local food supply and plant-based hubs. Policy should seek to reconnect local plant-based farmers to local consumers by increasing subsidies, funding, and/or programs for domestic plant-based crops specifically for human consumption. These policies should also increase access for all Americans to nutritional food groups, including fiber-rich foods, grains, and fungi, by expanding funding programs available for plant-based farmers. Well, that sounds abundantly sensible. More subsidies and funding for plant foods for people to eat. I think there is a lot to be said for that simple move of just like making healthy plant-based foods accessible. Number 2, farmer mobility and choice. The 2023 Farm Bill should give ranchers and farmers better options by help. Okay, it's a little out of date, but that's okay. By helping them transition to plant-based farming in response to mitigating livestock disease, avert climate impacts, and create a local healthy food supply. The government should prioritise programmes for small and medium-sized farmers, providing them direct assistance that is more economically sound for their livelihoods and will reduce their dependency on government funding. We suggest adopting a pilot program modelled after the work of the Rancher Advocacy Program, a program funded by a former cattle rancher in Texas who helps farmers transition to sustainable fiber-rich crop production. That's cool. AFA has legislative language, the Farm and Ranch Mobility Sustainability Act, Farms Act, that offers options to American farmers wanting to tap into the fast-growing fiber-rich foods market. I think the focus on fiber is a really good strategic idea. Hey Weevo, how's it going? Increase accessibility to nutrients of public health concern. The following underconsumed nutrients are listed as a public health concern in the Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2020 to 25. Calcium, vitamin D, potassium, fiber, and iron. Farm Bill policy should aim to increase nutrient-dense plant-based food access for SNAP programs, as well as for Americans adversely impacted by increasing inflation. Plates of Planet soil regeneration to truly create sustainable food production. Expanded research programs that look at the cost, speed, and resources needed to regenerate soil with certain plant types should be implemented. How many are there? Okay, only 6. Policies should ensure that plant growers are fairly recognized by programs that utilize the Commodity Credit Corporation and other resources when there are relief programs such as those created in response to extraordinary events. I'm kind of reassured by the fact that a lot of this is to do with sort of specific government programs that are that I don't necessarily know about. That suggests that they have done their homework and, you know, have some quite specific policy recommendations as to how this would be implemented. And then racial equity and access to funding for BIPOC consumers and farmers. Committee should undertake a review of all federal programs that unfairly deny or leave out BIPOC consumers and farmers to understand what the cause of limited utilization is. All federal programs should ensure equal access to BIPOC consumers and farmers and should utilize technology and local consultants. Well, this all sounds pretty based. Vegan Voter Hub. This is going to be Americans, but all right, I'm not going to do all this now, but check this out. Agriculture Fairness Alliance. Looks like it's geared towards US policy, so I'm not going to sign up because they're going to realize that I'm not one of you. And this was the other thing, the Rancher Advocacy Program that they mentioned. Oh, look at that. They've got links to Fork Saver Knives, Cowspiracy, Earthlings. So this is an organization that helps ranchers move towards plant-based farming. It's kind of interesting. Stick that in the chat as well. Rancher Advocacy Program, rancheradvocacy.org. And then we also saw agricultural agriculturefairnessalliance.org. So those are a couple of things that you can check out in the States. All right, we're going to do a bit of Fast Action Network. I really, really, really would love people to sign up and do this with me. This is action.thehumaneleague.org. And we're doing pretty simple social media, commenting, emailing. Basically targeting companies, mainly who have not done their cage-free pledges. And then after this, we'll watch David Rams on Alex O'Connor. Let's get it. Best Westerns Facebook. We're going to go and post a video to them. Guys, this is... Oh, hey, Carrie, how you doing? Nice to see you. I've pinned this message for action.thehumaneleague.org. We're... Damn it, that didn't work as a link. Maybe it doesn't let you post links. That's weird. Well, that's kind of going to be a problem for this for this task. Hello. Okay. That's kind of a bust, unless it comes up later. Well, I'm hitting down because I posted them. Email NCR Voyix about mobile billboards targeting board director. Calls out Lauren Miller, a member of Ahold Delhaize's supervisory board. She's also director of NCR Voyix. Yeah, they do a lot of these which are sort of targeting other affiliations of people who are affiliated with the company. So it's just brought up my Outlook there, sent that. Maybe do the phone ones because they're always American numbers. Comment on Pray Tell's LinkedIn posts. I've pinned the comment there, guys. action.thehumaneleague.org if you want to join in. We're telling off various companies on social media right now for their failures on animal welfare. Right now, this is for Pray Tell, which was appointed as Best Western's global communications agency. Interesting. Okay, well, they are kind of responsible for this in that case. Or at least responsible for communicating about it. Go and check out the pinned comment in chat for, hey, Humphrey, how you doing? Nice to see you. Go check out the pinned comment in chat for action.thehumaneleague.org. We're just spamming these various companies' social media right now to try and get them to take some accountability on animal welfare issues. And these guys haven't had any yet. This is a pretty recent thing on Fast Action Network. And I can't see any comments on this so far. They're all far too congratulatory, these comments. Pray Tell, this is the communications agency of Best Western, big hotel chain that has failed to follow through on its cage-free pledge. So we're giving them a bit of a hard time. Go and check out action.thehumaneleague.org if you want to find the links for all of these tasks. We've been emailing some executives. We were posting a bit on Facebook. These guys are getting a kick in. I've done like 10 posts for Praytel. Alright, I think that gets it done now. Come and join me, guys. I will be so happy if I see you all piling onto these comments after me. This was actually my original intention with this live stream, with this YouTube channel, was to do activism in a community like this, where we get other people joining in and we all go and, you know, do the... It's basically like an online letter writing party. You know, they used to have letter writing parties in sort of boomer activism, I guess. Oh, I was going to do 5 stars out of habit there. No, it's going to be a negative review. I'm normally a very nice review of these things. Stay away from Subway. Subway restaurants aren't doing enough to fulfill their 100% cage-free pledge in North America. They're shamelessly profiting off animal abuse. Go somewhere else. Is this... Annoyingly, this is going to... Oh, no, okay. This is in the right area, sorry. I thought it was going to comment on my local Subway, which is not in North America. But no, we're good. Done. So Subway get a negative review, lovely. Another phone one. I'm not going to do the phone ones on stream. Well, or off stream, because they're American numbers. Interact with this Best Western Facebook ad. I've got a comment to give them. Thank you, Humphrey. Appreciate that. Yeah, this slacktivism is so important, honestly. Wait, this is the THL video. Is this what it was meant to be? Okay, like, comment, and share. Yeah, let's do it. I have a big urge to write Best Western, more like Worst Western. So low. Oh man. Okay, here we go. Best Western hotels and rules. Shameful. I love that they're really just going at the hotel as well, to be honest. Mold on the ceiling, shower excessive, roaches. Well, they're really just going in on them beyond the cage-free stuff. Love it. Why not? Let's go hard. That's interesting. You don't get any points for the Facebook ones because apparently they have a policy that you're not allowed to do that. Interact for this Best Western LinkedIn ad. This is going to be the same thing, but on LinkedIn, I guess. Yeah. We love LinkedIn. There's really not that much interaction on this. If everyone on this stream went and interacted with this, it'd double it. Put it in the chat. This is just the LinkedIn post. I'll attack them. Best Western. Shameful. Man, someone's going to come in on Monday morning with all of these comments to deal with. Send this video in an email to Best Western's International Development Department. This is all going on action.thehumaneleague.org, guys, if you want to join in. I'll be so excited if I see people on the stream starting to do this and commenting on the same posts and stuff like this. By the way, some of these have really not got much interaction, right? So it's not like there's a ton of people taking part in these campaigns. There's 5 people watching the stream right now. If we all went and did these, I mean, some of these are like 2 days old and they've got, apart from me, 3 likes. So, you know, we can double this. Again, this was sort of my main, my original idea for what the stream would be about, being in a sort of accessible environment where we can do meaningful action and do activism for animals. These email ones, by the way, are bringing up my Outlook over here, so that's why you can't see what's going on, but there we go. We've been ripping through these. We're on action.thehumaneleague.com. If you want to join in, you're going to come across my comments on many of these. Shore Stay Hotels. This is going to be a Best Western thing again, isn't it? Yeah, it's a sub-brand of Best Western. We've got a comment loaded up for them. Hey, based Ellie Ponders. Nice. Look at that one comment, guys. I'm going to be the second comment on there now. This one's got a few more. Oh yeah, based. Look at all this. Based. These comments actually say savage. I'm not actually reading these before I'm posting them, but you're a disgrace to the hospitality industry. Anyone cares about animal welfare? Well, true. Your hotels reek of negligence and your leadership reeks of cowardice. Jesus. Goes kind of hard. Share this campaign video on World Hotels LinkedIn. Best Western's most luxurious sub-brand. That sounds high margin. Oh, whoops. That's not what I meant to do. Nice. Okay, we copy the comment. Come and join in, guys. Is anyone, any chatters on the action.thehumaneleague.org? Come and let some of these companies know what we think of them. I mean, these companies behind the logos and, you know, glossy kind of social media posts, these just like some middle-aged dudes sitting in meeting rooms, and we want to put on their Monday morning agenda, we're getting some bloody abuse about this cage-free pledge. And we can do that if we flood all of their channels. We're going to flood all of the Best Western sub-brands by the looks of it, which I'm down for. They also do things like suppliers and other affiliations of the management team and upper management. So the team at the Humane League really, you know, put some effort into planning these out. They'll have kind of maps of all the different stakeholders that they could go after, links to various accounts that you can post onto. They have all the, you know, the messages for you to copy paste written out. They make it really easy to do. And you don't have to leave your house. You can chill on a live stream and do it. What's this one then? Best Western Central Europe's Facebook. Best Western and Subway are the main targets of these campaigns at the moment. We've done a few Subway things already. We did a negative review on Google. We sent a couple of emails on Subway. Your hotels are a monument to filth, and your leadership's refusal to go cage-free is a monument to corporate heartlessness. You're a brand to be avoided at all costs. It's pretty savage. I mean, imagine if you're going to, like, think about going and stay at one of these places and you look it up and you see all of these comments. I feel like it's enough to put people off, especially if it's on Google reviews and stuff like that. That must really hurt them, to be fair. And how annoying for them just having their socials flooded with this stuff. I mean, if you're doing this kind of thing, if you've promised to stop caging the hens who supply your eggs and then you've just broken that promise, there's got to be some amount of shame, even if it's kind of buried, right? They must see these posts and know on one level, like, these guys are not wrong. We did promise to do that, and we were lying. It's not very cool if you think about it. Share this video on Best Western Mexico and Central America's Facebook. Absolutely, Humphrey, yeah. And this is done in such a strategic way as well. Like, these are all focused on either Best Western or Subway, and they're really, as you can see, like a spread of different affiliations and platforms. We're emailing suppliers, emailing executives. We're posting on social media. And the beauty of this is I really have not done any admin to make this happen, right? This is all prepared for me by the Humane League. It's so easy to go and do. action.thehumaneleague.org, guys, if you want to join in. It's the pinned comment. There's 7 people here now. I really feel that we can give these companies a good kicking if we all jump on and get commenting on their socials. This is all directed from this Humane League Fast Action Network platform. Literally just a stream of actions that you can do. You click onto them, gives you a comment to copy, and you're away. This is the kind of low obligation. This is the pouring the glass of water to prevent 1,000 years of suffering, right? This is so easy to do. It's difficult to not say that it's some kind of obligation to do this, at least to some extent. This stuff really works, you know. We're not just doing this at random here. Again, there's a lot of research that goes into. Oh, look at that! We've already commented on this one. We must have done them a few days ago. I bet I've commented on this as well. Yeah, I have. All right, well, that can get done then. But it really relies on people doing it. It really relies on, like, a fraction of the people who care enough to go vegan, or not even, right? Non-vegans could do this stuff, but they just have to be, you know, exceptionally people who care about animals to make the effort, essentially. The very little effort that it takes. It's easy to do, but it's easy not to do. It's real easy not to do this, even if you're watching someone do on a live stream and seeing how easy it is. It's even easier to not do it. I'll lift that. I already commented on that 5 days ago. action.thehumaneleague.org, guys. You will start to come across some of the same posts if we go through these. Looks like I've completed it again, with the possible exception of, well, I mean, with the actual exception of the phone call ones. It says use Google Maps to find your most local branch, actually, so maybe some of these are not necessarily US. Oh, doxed. Whoops. Delete the board. Oy, oy, oy. All right, well, we've completed Fast Action Network. Not ironically doxed. We're on VPNs now. Right, guys. Let's watch David Rams on Alex O'Connor, shall we?
I used to be a vegan. I'm just not convinced
Based, or used to be based.
that's going to work anymore.
Philosophy YouTuber and ex-vegan Alex O'Connor says he's not convinced veganism will work, but what if it already is working? And what if turning your back on it means turning your back on one of the most effective tools that we have to help animals? Honestly, Alex has some strong moments in this video, but then he makes a move that could completely undermine the change he wants to see. So let's get into his video, and I'll show you exactly where it all comes apart.
When you start looking at how we actually treat animals, I mean, how do you feel about, factory farming, for example? How do you feel about the way that we get our food?
I would hate to say it's a somewhat necessary evil.
Necessary for what?
Feeding people.
It's the same video that Ask Yourself responded to.
I would love to see maybe something more sustainable. I know crickets have been,
Yeah.
talked about quite
I will not eat the bugs.
a lot doing cricket protein.
I might live in the pod though. The pod doesn't sound too bad. I will not eat the bugs. I might live in the pod.
Also more sustainable versions of the same foods we're already eating, or less torturous. I mean, for example,
Yeah.
in my country, over 80% of pigs that are reared for food are in gas chambers. Carbon dioxide, they're lowered in cages into chambers of carbon dioxide, where you can watch the footage of this online. It's not just putting them to sleep. Now, we do actually know that there are other gases we can use that would be less painful, that they wouldn't cause them to squeal around, choking on their own breath. Invisible gas as well, so they...
I must like to know so much of the detail about this and have to sort of look someone in the eye and relay this information when you are buying it. I assume that he's buying pork. He's said that he at least has seafood. I guess that's the confirmed thing. But I believe he said other more animal products as well, just less specifically.
Probably just only adds to the confusion. Just an unimaginable cruelty for these animals. Now, maybe it's the case that for whatever reason, we need to be pigs for food. We need bacon, we need it for whatever reason. If that's the case, which is dubious already, why don't we use another gas which is less painful? Well, because it's more expensive.
This right here is the part most people never realize. When we talk about pigs being gassed to death, it's not because it's the only way to do it. It's not because it's the most humane. It's because it's cheap. That's it. Not health, not necessity, just profit. These companies aren't thinking, how can we feed people ethically? They're thinking, how do we keep this as cheap as possible so people keep buying it without asking too many questions? And if they used a slightly less painful gas, it'd cost more. And if it costs more, people might also start thinking about what they're actually paying for, and fewer people will buy it. Your awareness is a real threat to these companies.
It's sort of like, when you say it's a necessary evil, it might be necessary to kill animals for food. It might be necessary to rear maybe even lots of animals for food. And it may be necessary.
I would asterisk and say your action is a real threat, right? I mean, it's great to be aware, and maybe as a prerequisite to action to be aware. But it's not enough on its own.
Sometimes not to treat them ideally because of...
My intention in watching this is to get a bit of cross-section of analysis on Alex O'Connor, because I'm thinking of making my next cooking or cooked video on Alex O'Connor.
The amount of food that we need. But the current practices of factory
After the success of my Humane Hancock cooking or cooked video.
farming are sort of beyond the pale.
Here's a point most meat eaters and vegans tend to agree on. Factory farming is horrific, full stop. But there's a catch that a lot of people don't think through. If you want to get rid of factory farming, there'll be a massive drop in supply. You can't just pull the plug on factory farming and keep bacon at the same price. It's estimated that without factory farming, people would have to reduce their consumption of things like meat, dairy, and eggs by about 70% just to meet demand using these more ethical methods. It wouldn't be possible to produce as much as people consume now without factory farming. If you're a meat eater, would you be willing to reduce your consumption by 70% to help get rid of factory farming? And is that ask more convincing to you than the usual go vegan messaging from animal advocates?
Nice, Humphrey. I might have to check that out too.
Let me know down in the comments.
So what do you think is a solution for that practice of farming?
Well,
Is there one? Is it even possible to...
Who are these guys that he's speaking to, by the way? They look like some sort of evil Matrix brothers or something. Why do they rhyme with the Matrix, these two?
humanely breed and raise animals for farming?
well, humane is a tricky word to use there because, of course, to the extent that you're unnecessarily killing an animal, it's difficult to describe that as humane. I certainly think that if the industry is going to change, I used to be a vegan, and I used to think that the solution to this was just to not eat the products, to not pay for the products. It's essentially a boycott. Boycotts work, at least sometimes. Boycotts can be effective. And for a time, veganism was really beginning to take off. It seemed like it was really changing the world, and you become really convinced that the world one day will actually be vegan, that morality will catch up on the world, and in the same way that all kind of other injustices like human slavery are abolished, the same thing will happen with animal exploitation.
One thing I do think of our friend AOC, he is a good reminder that it's worth looking after your health as a vegan and making sure that you are doing all the proper supplements and everything else. I think that sometimes one idea that some vegans might find a bit seductive is that you care about animals so much that you're actually willing to sacrifice elements of your health. And that even if you are having some health drawbacks from your vegan diet, you're going to still remain committed to it. And, you know, that's just how much you care about animals and so on. I don't think that's a particularly sustainable or helpful attitude. Take your B12, take your vitamin D supplements, calcium, iron, all the rest of it, right? Just it will help the animals if you are healthy and are taking proper care of all that kind of stuff. Honestly, don't neglect supplements if you're vegan. You do need them to be healthy.
By the way, more human beings are in slavery today than were at the height of the transatlantic slave trade. It's just that at least now we condemn it and try to root it out. I'm just not convinced that's going to work anymore.
This point about slavery is kind of misleading, in my opinion. Yes, more people are enslaved globally today than during the transatlantic slave trade, but a huge part of the reason that slavery is still abolished in the West is moral conviction. That same conviction created laws, and those laws hold because most people continue to believe that slavery is wrong. If people didn't care anymore, you'd see it come back. So if Alex is hinting at the argument that, well, slavery still exists, therefore veganism won't work, I'm not sure that holds. If anything, it shows that when people care enough, change does happen and it can last.
I don't think that people will.
What is the interesting analogue in the case of abolishing legal slavery, and yet there's more slavery today than ever? To what extent is that a consequence of higher population than ever as well? Presumably a lower percentage of people are in slavery than were during institutionalized slavery. Is that a distinction worth making? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, look, there is still slavery going on, and that's bad. But certainly it would be worse if slavery wasn't in fact illegal. Right, there's slavery going on, but to the extent that's happening in countries with, you know, developed legal systems, you're not meant to be doing that. And you know, the legal system will come and enforce that at some point, right? And it would be good to do that in the case of animals as well, even if there were still some people, you know, roguely eating animals outside of the law. This is like the main reason why I talk about ending factory farming as the major tractable objective. Because you could actually know whether you had achieved it, whereas in the case of eliminating all animal consumption, let's say, we haven't eliminated all murder, right? But nonetheless, it's good that we don't have like death camps. So yeah, you might not be able to eliminate something entirely, but if you can eliminate it institutionally, obviously that's still worth doing.
Will stop eating animals, and I don't think that it's wrong in the way that I used to in principle, because you sort of the big end of the funnel when it comes to veganism is factory farming footage. You know, you show people. I talk just how I've spoken to you now about these abominable practices, and so you say,
well, I was talking about pigs in gas chambers, which that's going to be the slaughter method for non-factory farmed pigs also, in most cases. I don't think I actually mentioned anything about factory farming, right?
Say, okay, I want to do something about this, and then maybe you become a vegan, and then there's a lot of debate about, well, what if we kill the animals in a different way? What if I've got backyard chicken farming? And there's a big discussion. Like, what if I've got chickens in my back garden? What if I eat their eggs? Can that be a problem? And people will still say, well, okay, they've still been selectively bred to lay more eggs than they would naturally, which often gives them a calcium deficiency, which leads to things like osteoporosis in chickens, which is bad, but it's nowhere near as bad or as as much of an emergency as factory farming, right? And so suddenly you're having these much more sort of nuanced debates about animal ethics, about what you have the right to do, because you've first you've gotten through the door with the obvious stuff.
Now, this is where things get a bit blurry for me and where his arguments start to fall apart, in my opinion. He's saying that because vegans debate things like backyard chicken eggs, that's somehow evidence that veganism doesn't work or won't work. That's like saying medicine won't work because doctors disagree on which treatment is best. Ethical debates are part of any mature movement. If we all agreed on everything, we'd be a cult. Debating edge cases doesn't make the core ideas any less valid. If anything, it means we're taking it very seriously by exploring these different concepts and ideas and being open to other perspectives that could help animals.
The first thing we need to do is convince people of the obvious stuff. This is inexcusable. There's no excuse for the way that we are sort of treating pigs in factory farms at the moment. There's simply no excuse. If this is the only way to produce bacon to the extent that we currently eat it, then eat less. Right? It's just not even close. It makes a parody of ethics. The solution, I think, needs to be something like what happened with the environmentalist movement. You remember sort of 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, everybody's saying, make sure you switch off your lights, make sure you don't leave the tap running, because if you leave that running for a year, it can fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And so you're sort of doing your little bit. And then people begin to realize, actually, that's not really solving the problem. What we need to do is we need to go and like lobby Shell to.
The thing is with this, there's a couple of things, right? One is that is kind of a shifting of responsibility in a way that is awfully convenient for individuals, which, by the way, is everyone, right? I'm sure the CEO of Shell could equally say this, right? It's not really my fault that everybody wants cheap petroleum products, and if I wasn't the CEO of Shell, somebody else would be the CEO of Shell, making petroleum products as cheap as possible. It also relies on enough people caring enough to do and support the lobbying. So yes, lobbying and top-down change is a good approach, but you need enough people willing to do the activism of that and push it and hold stakeholders to account, as we're trying to do on the Fast Action Network here. But you also ultimately need their stakeholders to care. You need their customers to care to some extent. You need their shareholders to care to some extent. To the extent that their customers care, most likely. Right? So everything that we're doing in that kind of activism is to try to inflict damage on these companies who have broken their promises on animal welfare. But yeah, it relies on individuals at the end of the day. We are all customers, we are all the investors. And if everybody has this attitude of, the responsibility is somewhere else, it ends up nowhere.
To stop whatever the hell it is that Shell do. We need to stop governments from investing in fuel licenses. We need to get universities to divest their investments in fossil fuel industries, for example. It's much more now about protesting authority and trying to make systematic change happening from the top down. And now the idea of the environmentalist, whose principal focus is trying to convince people to remember to turn their lights off, kind of seems almost a bit silly. It's like, really, like that's going to solve the problem? Well, maybe, yeah, sure, if everybody did that.
I'd be really interested to know what Alex is doing in terms of the top-down approach that he's now talking about. Because if you sort of said this is a better way of doing it than being vegan, I mean, is he doing anything along those lines? Is he doing any kind of vegan 2.0 type stuff? Is he doing any activism? Is he doing any donating? Is he doing anything to do the kind of top-down change? Hold on, my audio is breaking up. That's not ideal. Damn. How's that, guys? Can you hear me okay or no?
And trying to make systematic change happening.
Is he doing any activism? Is he doing any donating? Oh, it's doing anything to do the kind of top-down change? Hold on, my audio is breaking. Fixed. Nice. Okay, based. Thank you guys for letting me know.
Maybe we'd have less of a problem. But the way to do this
I appreciate you guys.
is clearly systematic top-down change. And I think the same thing maybe needs to happen with veganism. I'm not entirely sure about this. I'm open to be convinced either way. But I think that whereas people might have said, yeah, we just need to stop eating these products, maybe it's now actually, no, let's go and lobby the government to make this a criminal offense.
I don't think
Okay, but is he doing that?
this analogy works, and I'll show you where I think this falls apart. Turning off your lights or a tap, that's a drop in the ocean. Energy companies don't go bankrupt because you took shorter showers. But when people stop buying meat, dairy, or eggs, when they put their money into animal-free products, that hits these industries really hard. They lose market share. And that's why they're suddenly invested in oat milk, vegan sausages, and animal-free burgers. It's not because they care, it's because you took your money elsewhere. And that is how personal action drives systemic change. And here's something else that I think makes this analogy weak. If you turn off a light or turn off the tap, the power company and the water company are not trying to desperately figure out where you spent the money elsewhere. They don't see your action or feel its impact directly. But when you stop buying animal products and you put your money into the animal-free alternatives, you're not just reducing something abstract like water use or electricity use. You're actively sending a signal to these industries of where the profit is going. You're telling them, this is the future. Animal-free products are the future. That's what I'm spending my money on. Follow it or get left behind. That's why the meat industry reacts to vegan trends with panic. It's why fast food giants are now having animal-free burgers and animal-free options. Even without a single law passed, if enough people stop buying, animal agriculture industries will change to protect their profits. And we've already been seeing this happen. Combine that with protest, pressure from both below and above, and suddenly the industries are getting cornered. Protest is powerful, but protest without financial impact, it's mostly just noise. But public outcry and hitting their bottom line, that's the recipe for rapid, large-scale change. And here's something else to think about. Even if you put the strategy talk to one side for a moment, what does it actually say about us if we pay for animals to be gassed, mutilated, and killed just because we like the taste? If it's unnecessary and we know it's cruel, and we still choose to fund it, what kind of moral character is that revealing? We shouldn't just change because it works tactically. We should also change because it's the right thing to do. And as for encouraging people to do the right thing, isn't it good to encourage people to be good?
Now, how would that differ with crickets? Because let's just say,
I'm not sure if I like the disanalogy to the energy thing there, because I mean it is going to still be supply and demand. Energy companies presumably want us to consume more energy. And I'll say as well, when people did start becoming concerned about carbon footprint and all the rest of it, a lot of companies in the energy companies in the UK do say now, it's very important to make like green claims. Is basically the point that I'm making. They'll say X% of our energy is from renewable sources and stuff like that, and that reflects that consumers care about that, and a certain number of them are going to switch over to a more green energy supplier and maybe be willing to pay more for green energy and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I just think consumer demand is important in both cases, basically. I agree with most of what David said here. But yeah, I think the analogy to energy is probably fairer than David gave it credit for. I just think consumer demand is important in both cases.
one cow could feed 10 people versus 10,000 crickets.
Yeah.
Feeding the same 10 people, and like 10,000 crickets have to.
Small body problem again. So
And-
again, it's the same clip that AY watched the other day.
be kept in in their own filth and this and that. Like,
It
how would it
depends.
differ from the perspective of just suffering life?
It's going to depend on your view of like consciousness of crickets,
Yeah.
right? Because intuitively, I want to say that a cow is worth many more.
And of course, the main thing that David said here, which I agree again, same point that I made as well, right? You can do both. And this is what a lot of people always say in my comments about Vegan 2.0, right? Make sure you're doing both, you got to do both. I have questions really about how much of the top-down stuff Alex has done. It's all very well saying like, "Oh, I'm not going to do veganism anymore because that's not having the impact that I want it to." But what is he doing in terms of donating and volunteering and everything else?
Much more than a cricket. Many more crickets are worth the same as a cow. But that's a very difficult thing to quantify. It's like when we actually try to put a number on it, it's impossible. Like, how many cows would you save one dog? Like, man, I don't know. Like 3.5. Like, who knows, right?
Yeah. The correct answer is 1.75.
Right. Yeah. I think that the cricket thing is interesting, right? Because what's the solution? You know, if we're not eating cows, what if we're going to eat thousands of crickets? Well, look, why not let's start by like eating cows, but not rearing them on factory farms. How about that? Why don't we?
Many people are saying this, Humphrey.
Sort of try to create more organic ways of farming these animals, at least as a start, right? Like, in other words, there are not two options. If you really don't want to do away with the eating of animal products, it's not like your only options are forcing pigs into gas chambers or eating thousands of locusts. There's sort of a middle ground to be had there, right? And so what I'm saying here is, for a start at least, systematic governmental change. It should be a criminal offense to do all kinds of things that are currently legal. Because, by the way, the things I'm describing here are legal.
So let's talk about incrementalism. This is the idea that we make small changes that slowly improve on an issue rather than trying to uproot the entire system all at once. Alex suggests, what if we just made farming less torturous as a start? So let's just do away with the factory farming.
I'm pretty pro-incrementalist. Let's see where this goes.
And those problems, and maybe eat cows in a better way. And honestly, that is how most big ethical shifts happen. Slavery abolition started with small...
Based. That's I really like David Rams. From what I've seen of him, I don't think I've really disagreed with much that he said on anything. I was expecting him to be sort of anti-incrementalist here, but based.
More reforms, things like better conditions and limits on trade. Slaves were seen as essential. People didn't just disagree. They thought abolition was radical, fringe, dangerous to the economy. So instead, the people against slavery pushed for better treatment and limits on trade and some of these things that are related more to the conditions. It's not because they didn't want full abolition, but it's because they knew they couldn't get it all at once. So what did they do? Well, they chipped away step by step until public sentiment shifted enough to finish the job and get it abolished. And if that's how it had to be done for humans, with all the empathy and legal rights we already grant to humans, do we really think the road to ending animal exploitation will be faster or cleaner? We're almost certainly going to have to walk a similar path, fighting for these incremental changes while
Yeah, absolutely. There's no big green button.
Holding on to that ultimate goal of a world where we no longer do this to animals at all. And look, just like then, both slaves and animals, they deserve to be free from all of this violence. They both deserve for us to stand on principle. But in practice, especially early on, it might be better for them that we hold abolitionist views privately while acting in a way that makes incremental change possible publicly. Saying all that though, I was genuinely surprised that at this part of the conversation, when they're talking about the different options you could choose, that none of them brought up the elephant or the tofu in the room: animal-free diets. We've got thousands of plant-based foods, from legumes to seitan, vegan cheese to oat milk, and it's never been
Right, yeah, that's true. They were just talking about different animals that you could eat.
easier. Now, Alex has cited personal health issues as to why he won't eat an animal-free diet. To be clear, those issues predated his vegan diet, and from what I understand, he didn't seek proper nutrition.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. The health issues that he's citing predate his veganism. Well, it's probably not to do with his veganism then, was it? Unless he said that exacerbated it somehow. But then, I don't know.
support to help with those issues. I mean, that's probably why he's not raising the third option of simply choosing animal-free food. But this context matters because for most people, eating an animal-free diet doesn't mean choosing between ethics and health. It means both. You could eat a tasty, nutritious, animal-free diet that doesn't require funding all the horrors Alex has been describing in this video so far. And that third option should absolutely have been on the table in this discussion.
And most factory farms aren't even following the regulations. You know, every single time.
This guy going vegan was huge. I mean, he has about 1.5 million subscribers. I'll bet that a lot of his followers followed him into veganism and maybe followed him out of it. It's interesting trying to influence the influencers. I think is probably quite a good tractable strategy. Rather than doing what I'm doing and trying to, you know, be vegan at the start and then start a YouTube channel or whatever and build it up like that. If you can get people who already have a big platform to change their mind, then, you know, that's even more people that are already following them who are going to potentially go along with that. I wonder who are other big influencers that are future vegans.
Time somebody breaks in with a camera, puts a camera on,
Or future ex-vegans.
on the side of a factory farm and like exposes what's going on, it's so much worse. It's so much worse. And I'm describing what you can legally do. And that's if everybody's following the rules. People like Joey Carbstrong for years have been breaking into farms at, I suppose, quite considerable risk and putting cameras on the side and showing people what happens. And it's not nice. And so at the very least, this kind of stuff should be a criminal offence. Yeah. In the UK, you have to stun an animal before you can kill it. It's a legal requirement that you have to stun an animal before you kill it for food. Now,
Something like he had IBS and veganism, apparently many had less options available to him to eat when travelling. They could just bring food with them. Interesting. I can see why you wouldn't want to go into the details of that too much in public.
the UK government considers gas chambers to be a form of stunning at the same time, if you like, two birds with one stone, or two pigs in one gas chamber. And so this practice is allowed where, like, you know, if the pig didn't die...
It kind of felt like vegans doing little quips like that feels kind of fine because they know, but when non-vegans do it, I mean, it's like, we can say it, bro.
It might well be illegal because you've just sort of gassed a pig and it hasn't died. And also if you just like that pig without stunning it, you'd have committed a criminal offense.
I've actually got a lot of respect for Alex here. Calling for the criminalization of some factory farming practices, especially when most of your audience likely supports those very practices, is bold, to say the least. But I do have a problem with his idea of strategy, because legislation doesn't lead culture, culture leads legislation. Governments generally don't outlaw things their voters want. And most voters still support animal agriculture and industrial animal agriculture. So if you want legal change, you're going to need to change the culture first. And that means...
Damn, why is this guy absolutely hitting out of the park in every comment? What is David Ramsey's background? He's a very smart guy. He's really got the... He understands how all of this works, right? Which... so many people don't. So many people don't. It's not necessarily intuitive to understand the connections between the institutional level staff and the individual level staff. And, you know, yes, we can do lobbying, but it's still important for individuals to be going vegan and to be, you know, taking part in that and so on. I really appreciate this guy's commentary.
We have to convince people to stop funding this violence to animals, to start making changes in their lives, and then to vote for people who will apply pressure on these industries. And just as a factual note, Alex says animals must be stunned before slaughter in the UK, but that's not always true. Religious exemptions allow for slaughter without stunning under halal and kosher practices. So even the most basic protections for animals aren't consistently applied, which is a huge issue. Not only are animal welfare laws not properly enforced, They're undermined for religious sentiment. This is another reason we need the public to be morally motivated and on board, both in their consumer actions and voting behavior.
So there's this argument.
Nailed it again, yeah, consumer actions and voting behavior. I mean, those are the things that like we're ultimately trying to influence. And again, my sort of approach and theory of change is one step removed from that, in trying to better equip and motivate vegans to be changing the consumption and voting preferences of others as well.
Called name the trait, which is used in the context of animal ethics, which is to say, you know, give me the thing that's...
Yeah, I bet, Humphrey, there's got to be a lot of his fans that totally understood why you would go vegan and sort of followed him on that journey. And then you're a bit like, what the hell, dude?
true of a pig or a cow, that if it were true of a human, you'd be okay
Less said about the tash, the better, right?
the human for food. Right? So people say, well, you know, we kill animals because they're less intelligent than us. Okay, so we'll take a human being and make them less intelligent. You know, actually, Thomas Jefferson wrote about this. He
This is the bit where he doesn't mention ask himself. Thomas Jefferson, though.
was responding to a review, I think, of a book that had been published around the time of the American Revolution about the intellectual and artistic achievements of black people. Somebody had written a book detailing all kinds of achievements that were done, that were made by black people. And I suppose the implication was to be like, you know, look what people are capable of. You know, you should think differently about black people. And Thomas Jefferson wrote a response to this and said, like, you know, no one's happier than I am to see this kind of thing. But we should not fool ourselves into thinking that this is any indication of their worth. I mean, just because Isaac Newton was more intelligent than, you know, my mother, does that mean that he has more of a right to life, to not be abused, to not be killed? No, of course not. You know, and in other words, intelligence is not a metric to determine your moral worth. But if that's the case, then when somebody says, well, you know, pigs are less intelligent than us, okay, so what? Okay, so what is it then? Like, is it, oh, well, pigs are less self-aware. Okay, well, you can make a human less self-aware as well. You can imagine like a cognitively disabled human being. You can essentially start transforming a human being into a pig. Mm-hmm. You can give the human 4 legs. Is it okay to put him in a gas chamber now? No. Okay, well, let's lower the human's intelligence level. Definitely not. We definitely don't want to be putting people in gas chambers based on their intelligence level, do we? Okay, what if we give them a curly tail? How about now? Like, no. Okay, but you're slowly turning this human into a pig, and you get to a point where that human is now identical to the pig, and yet you still are like, no, it's still not okay to put them in the gas chamber. But that's what we're doing over here to this identical creature, you know? So it's actually very difficult to determine what...
That's very interesting.
It's like the biggest challenge. But because one of the reasons it's such a big challenge is because on another level, like a human is worth more than a pig. Like people just sort of intuitively know this. Now, I'm an emotivist about ethics. I think that when people make ethical judgments, they're just expressing emotions. And so I think it's got a lot to do with how many genes you share with people. And so I think that really it's got to do with like how much that pig kind of resembles a human to you. That's going to determine like how much you in fact value that pig. That's not a moral claim. That's not a justified. I think that's just what's happening. But if you start trying to say that, no, actually, I think that, you know, a pig is worth less than a human. And I think that a dog is worth more than a rat. And I ask you why. Whatever reason you give, all you've got to do is apply that to a human being and see if that's actually the reason, you know? And a lot of the time you find that it's not.
He makes a great point here. Why do we care more about dogs than pigs? It's definitely not logical. People connect with dogs, don't connect with cows. But if you spend time with rescued pigs or cows, you learn to see their personalities, their quirks, their bonds. You see them play, feel joy, and grieve. The real reason we don't care, it's not intelligence, it's convenience. We've been taught not to connect, but that's something we can undo. And once we break that barrier, once we meet these animals properly, once we learn how much they feel, how their emotions, how they feel pain and can suffer and feel joy and happiness, just like our dogs and cats and pets, you'll never see them as food again. You'll look at the products in the supermarket and you'll connect with the animal, not the product. Alex might have walked away from veganism, but the truth he helped expose about animals, including what he outlines in this video, these are truths that are still there. and they aren't going away unless we do something about it. I'm glad to see Alex raising serious, valid concerns about factory farming, but when he suggests that individual change doesn't matter, or that debate among vegans somehow undermines the whole cause, that's where the arguments fall apart for me. Systems don't change unless people change, and culture doesn't shift unless individuals start showing that it's possible to live differently. That's why veganism matters, not just as a tactic, but as a moral stance. The good thing is that principle and strategy are aligned here. Choosing animal-free products isn't just the right thing to do, it also builds the cultural momentum we need to push this real, long-lasting change. So if you're already questioning factory farming, don't stop there. Keep going. Because when the only justification left is, I like how it tastes, we have to ask, is that really enough? If it wouldn't justify hurting a dog, a cat, or a child even, why should it justify hurting them? Try to think about this from the animal's perspective. Think about what they feel, what they go through, and what it means when we pay for their suffering. If animals don't deserve gas chambers, maybe they don't deserve to be food either.
Nice based video. I'll put the link to this in the chat here. Go give David Rams a like and a sub and everything else. Not that he needs my help. We've got a few things that we could look at next. I'll have a look at this piece I wrote about COP30, which is this year in Brazil. It's called The Wrong Pathway, why meat reduction is possible, necessary, and complementary with improvements to efficiency. The FAO's controversial Pathways to Lower Emissions report is likely to be a key publication in the livestock industry's lobbying at COP30 in Brazil in 2025. However, the report's analysis is fundamentally flawed by the extreme, unrealistic assumption that meat reduction is not possible. We show that meat reduction is not only possible but necessary to achieve our climate goals and complementary to other efforts to improve livestock efficiency. Let me go ahead and update the stream title here. Let's do. That's what we'll do afterwards. We're reading and playing with data. Drop a like on the stream if you didn't already, guys. Really helps us out. Alright, the road to COP30. In November 2025, the United Nations will hold its 30th Conference of Parties on Climate Change, COP30. The conference is an annual meeting of the world's governments to discuss the major priorities for mitigating climate change. While previous COPs have led to major agreements on global emissions targets, the conference is often criticized for being held in countries with a large political stake in emissions-intensive industries. In 2023, COP28 was hosted in the United Arab Emirates, one of the world's largest oil-producing countries. The event attracted a record number of fossil fuel lobbyists, 4 times more than the previous year. Then in 2024, COP29 was hosted in Azerbaijan, a country in which fossil fuels account for nearly half of GDP and 92% of export revenues. The event was opened by Azerbaijan's president declaring oil and gas to be a gift from God, and the final text did not renew the previous year's call to phase out fossil fuels or reduce subsidies. In 2025, COP30 will be hosted in Brazil, the world's largest exporter of meat. This is important because livestock systems are a significant driver of climate change, and livestock sector lobbyists will undoubtedly be ready to defend their industry at COP30. Indeed, livestock lobbyists have already begun engaging with the United Nations organizations on this issue. This is our graph of net importers and exporters of meat. This is a pretty interesting thing to look at because these countries are going to be more or less in favor of, the meat industry overall, let's say. If you look at the Dublin Declaration signatories, for example, a disproportionate number of them are from Brazil. It's by far the world's largest exporting meat exporting country. Right, way more than second place Spain. And this is net exports, so they're producing and exporting a lot more meat than they're consuming or importing. Lobbyists officiating the need for meat reduction. At COP28 in 2023, the Food and Agriculture Organization released its controversial Pathways Towards Lower Emissions report. The report argued that meat reduction would account for very little of the climate mitigation potential for the livestock sector. At COP29 in 2024, there was very little discussion about reducing livestock. The livestock discussion that took place centered on the talking points in the Pathways report, including animal health, genetics, feed, and livestock in developing countries, but not meat reduction. At COP30 in 2025, there is no doubt that livestock industry lobbyists will appeal to the 2023 FAO Pathways Towards Lower Emissions report. This is despite the fact that the report seriously distorts the evidence according to the very scientists whose work forms the backbone of the report. Over 100 organizations and scientists are calling for the report to be retracted due to undue industry influence. Furthermore, the FAO's report has a fundamental flaw. It assumes that there will be very little diet change in the future. It then uses this assumption as the basis of its analysis of how much mitigation potential will come from dietary change. You might need to read that twice because its logic is so silly. It's obviously trivial to say that a very low percentage of emissions reduction will come from diet change if you start by assuming that there will be very little diet change. If my wife expressed concern that we were spending too much money on single malt whiskey, I might reassure her by saying that changes in single malt whiskey consumption would only account for a very low percentage of the overall change in our household spending in the next year. However, this might well be less reassuring if she discovered that this analysis was underpinned by the assumption that I would continue to consume unsustainably high amounts of single malt whiskey. At that stage, it would seem perfectly reasonable for her to ask, "Might you not try consuming less single malt whiskey?" The FAO's 2023 Pathways Towards Lower Emissions report assumes that significant meat reduction is not possible and uses that as the basis to argue that efficiency improvements to the livestock can meet our climate goals instead. Here we argue that meat reduction is not only possible, but that it is necessary and that it is not mutually exclusive with efficiency improvements in any case. Number one, meat reduction is possible. The flawed analysis in the FAO's report is based on the incorrect assumption that significant reduction in meat consumption is not possible. In fact, we can point to a number of ways that meat consumption could be significantly reduced using public policy, technological development, and simple behavioral nudges. Number one, mandatory labels to ensure consumers have accurate information about the animal welfare, health, and environmental impacts of meat would be likely to reduce consumption. Number two, having governments implement and incentivize simple, proven behavioral nudges in food choice settings. Effective nudges include plant-based defaults, majority plant-based menus, and appealing descriptions for plant-based products. Number three, continuing to develop alternative proteins that compete with animal products in terms of taste and price will lead to further displacement of animal products by alternatives, reducing overall meat consumption. Just had all my ice fall in my face. Number four, having meat producers pay for their negative externalities, including emissions and public health risks, would increase the cost of meat, which would decrease consumption. So that would be things like carbon taxes or emissions taxes. Despite the claims in the FAO's Pathways report, there are numerous impactful and tractable ways to reduce meat consumption just waiting to be adopted by well-informed governments. Number two, meat reduction is necessary. Meat reduction is not only possible, it is necessary to achieve our climate goals. A 2022 paper published in Science found that without significant changes to our food system, including significant meat reduction, we are extremely unlikely to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. Much has been made of the FAO's revision of the direct emissions attributable to the livestock sector from 18% down to 12%. Although the argument underpinning this revision are questionable, this misses the broader point that much of the livestock's emissions are indirect. This is not just a discussion about the methane that comes out of farmed animals. It's about the forests that are being cut down to feed them. Indeed, livestock systems are a major driver of deforestation, accounting for 77% of all deforestation. Direct emissions from livestock are only a small part of the story. A larger problem with livestock systems is that they require so much land that they limit the land we have for carbon sequestration and storage. Pasture-raised beef, for example, requires 420 meters squared of land per kilogram, meaning that a single quarter pounder requires enough land to park 3 Ford F-150s. Livestock are inherently inefficient compared to crops because they occupy a higher place on the trophic chain. That means it is inevitable that significant caloric energy is wasted when livestock turn crops into animal products. Livestock consume energy from the crops. Most energy is wasted by livestock during their lifespan, and only a small amount of it ends up consumed as animal products. This is the trophic chain argument. This, I found, is like very intuitive to some people who otherwise struggle to get what's going on. So this simple graph, I think, is good. The trophic chain. Number 3, meat reduction is not mutually exclusive with increased livestock productivity. Finally, the livestock productivity efficiency improvement proposed in the FAO's Pathways report and elsewhere are not mutually exclusive with meat reduction. Animal products are the most emissions-intensive foods by a wide margin. Even if efficiency improvements cut their emissions in half, animal products would still be the most emissions-intensive foods. The inescapable conclusion is that consuming fewer of them will always be necessary to mitigate emissions. At this stage, technologies to improve the emissions efficiency of livestock production may also be a necessary part of emissions mitigation for the livestock sector. But these technologies on their own are not enough, and it is irresponsible for industry lobbyists to suggest that they will be. Significant reductions in meat consumption are not only possible, but are necessary to meet our climate goals. COP30 in Brazil in 2025 will be a key junction in the discourse on climate and food systems, and we must not allow the conversation to be misled by quote-unquote evidence based on fundamental flaws. This is one of our articles over at Brian Research. I'll put the link again in chat if people want to check it out. Lots of other things on here that we could read at some points. But let's see. It's going to actually have a play with some survey data here. This might end up emptying the stream, we'll see. This is publicly available data that we put out last year. Here's the OSF page. If you're interested, you can go and download the spreadsheet. Thanks, Asparago. Animal Ask is not my site, no, but they do have some good resources. We were reading one the other day, and I was thinking about having a look at this one on shareholder activism. It's kind of long for today, though. So that's the OSF link. You can actually go and download this CSV. And I thought we'd just have a look, see what we can find. This is a survey that we ran last summer, 2024. We've just done the 2025 wave, but we haven't finished cleaning up the data yet. So let's see, we've also got a data dictionary here. So this is going to tell us what all these variables are. If we can get the right thing. There we go. All right, let's have a look. So these were the survey questions we had. And you're going to see in a minute we can go and do some live analysis together. Show you the kind of things we can do. We're going to be doing pivot tables like this. I haven't really looked at this data much, by the way. We've published this and put it out, and some other people have done some analysis of it. Some of my team have done some analysis of it as well. But I haven't really, I really haven't looked at this in detail, to be honest. Right, so we're going to count that. This should be like about 1,000. 984. Okay. So let's see by one of these first ones looked like it was asking about diet, current diet. So we need to look for current diet on here. Here we go. So we had 984 people. This is last August, I think, in the UK. What have we got? Show as percent of column. Okay, there you go. We can reorder these because they're not in the right order. Spreadsheet stream. Pretty based. Pretty based. Alright, let's go pescatarian. So then we got flexitarian. And we got omnivore. .56% omnivores. 31% flexitarians. 4.5% pescatarians. 1.8% vegans. And 6.3% vegetarians. That's pretty much similar to what I've seen elsewhere, so that's always reassuring when there's a good convergence between data sets. That suggests that you're probably pointing in the right direction. Oh, there we go. So that's what our sample looks like. We can change some of these colors. Pescatarian. I normally put pescatarian in blue. And then flexitarian can be like orange. And omnivore can be red. And then we're going to do data labels. Let's get rid of these decimal places so it's a bit tidier. I'll pin this comment with the dataset. I feel like some people in my audience might go and want to download this.